All right, good morning, YouTube. I just got all of the chores done for the livestock and for the garden and everything. This is the project that I've been working on. Sitting here having, let's get weirdness on it. I'm sitting here having my morning coffee. Yeah, I haven't had coffee since the new year, since like just after Christmas. So I drink tea now every day, which I gotta say I enjoy a lot more. And I had to go to the hospital because we thought it was problems with my gallbladder, but it wasn't. They think I have a an ulcer, so I've been on all sorts of meds for that, all sorts of pills for that, and I've had to change my diet a bit. But none of that is the purpose of this video. That's just the beginning rambling that you've all come to know and love. Right now, I'm downstairs in my basement, which is finally starting to look like a usable wood shop. Amazon sells these fluorescent lights that are now all over my basement. They're $10 a piece, and you buy them in a 10-pack, so it's like $100. You get 10 lights. I've still got 3 of them left. One of them is, I think I have 3. Yeah, there's 3 over there. This is what they look like. So they're pretty cool little lights, and they're bright, as you can tell. And one of them is going to go in the back in the laundry room because... all right, so this is kind of ridiculous. I completely wired in like a light, a light and a switch for that back room. And because it was dark. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put a light in here, and I'm going to have Hayden, my son, do it with me. And he did. He likes electrical. He's cool like that. And he did good. He's too tall, and every time he goes in there, he hits his head on it. And I don't think there's enough slack in the Romex to move it. So I'm going to put one of these lights in there. And the last 2, I might put outside in the garage because I am in the process now that I've got this together. And I'll give you a full tour of this in a minute. I have decided, my wife and I have decided that I'm going to get some blacksmithing equipment. I'm going to get a nice anvil, nice forge, and just start doing that. In addition to the woodworking, almost like a compliment to the woodworking. Because we have decided also that all of our furniture in the house is mismatched. It's like, it looks like a college dorm or like a college apartment. And so I made a couple of end tables for the living room, which is actually that way. I don't know why I pointed this way, but I made a couple of those. I'm going to be making. I did a nice chainsaw slab. I got 2 slabs out of a nice piece of red oak. Those are drying. They're going to be made into a coffee table for that room. A nice live edge coffee table with little turn spindle legs that I do a wedge, through tenon with a wedge. It's going to look cool. But I've got our next few projects lined up for woodworking. I'm going to be doing a set of nightstands for our room, and it's going to be my version of a 6 board chest. It's going to be a 6 panel, so it's going to be the same kind of concept, and it's all going to be dovetailed. The drawers in the nightstands, I am going to do dovetails there and get myself used to it. And then I'm going to be making. I got tea on my mustache. Then I'm going to be making a timber frame bed. Then we're going to be thinking about, she's looking at different things. She's trying to figure out what she wants for a dresser and a whatever you call a dresser with a mirror. So we're looking at that. We might end up putting a one of the little Amish electric fireplaces in our bedroom because it would kind of be a pain to bump a chimney out of that, bump a metal Bestis chimney out of that. Oh, we just got the dogs these big dinosaur bones, like they're huge. It's like a cow's femur or something, and they're banging around up there with them because we're in, like I said, we're in my basement. But I have been rambling long enough, and now we're going to get into a shop tour. If you can imagine that. This is the very beginning of the shop tour. So keep in mind, I'm still working on this. Right there, you see the workbench. I originally had it there, but I didn't have enough light. So once I got these, I decided, yeah, we're definitely going to put it there, and it's going to work out nice down there. Got this. This vise is removable. I got this big boy vise. It's over 100 years old, and when we were helping to clean out my father-in-law's garage because he was going into assisted living, he had just oh my god, a ton of stuff. And that's a Schoberg vise, I think. No, it's actually made in Worcester, Mass, which is kind of cool. And it's over 100 years old. It's solid as a rock. It's awesome. And I used that. I replaced the two carpenter's vices I had married together there with a long board. And that there is my new joinery vise. Well, new to me. And then we have just this random stuff on top because, like I said, I'm moving stuff in. This is the belt that I use in the shop so that I don't put stuff down and lose it. We come over here. I gotta find a place for all that. That's actually a glass grinder for stained glass, and I'd like to set up a little area for that because I used to do that, and I'd like to do that again. Over here we have my lathe, which it was originally set up on that big collapsible table, and I mean that was okay. It wasn't great. I really didn't like. It felt unstable. So I found that in the garbage somewhere, that a desk, I guess you'd call it. Somebody was getting rid of it years ago, and I've always kept it and just kept a scroll saw on it so you can sit there and use a scroll saw. But it didn't really work too great, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna see if I can get more use out of that. So that little sawhorse there also came from my father-in-law's house. And I put the two together, put the 2x4 in there so that it'll have the right height to meet that, and it's perfect. And I decided, okay, well, I got to put my scroll saw somewhere. So I screwed this on. I got that set there, and I can just bring like a little office chair or something over and do my scroll work. So you probably noticed that I also have a ton of cardboard boxes. Drives my family crazy. I say we need to keep these boxes, because all of those boxes are going down in the garden for weed control. I had a horrible time with weeds last year, so I'm going to cardboard mulch, and then I'm going to put grass clippings and compost over the top of that. So that'll hopefully cut down on the weeds. I got to put another mulch through the beds too, but that's neither here nor there at this time. So we're moving along. You're probably starting to wonder, okay, where's like the shop stuff? Where's the stuff you use to actually make stuff other than the lathe and the little scroll saw? So, if we go past all of the boxes, and that's about a 75-year-old scroll saw that I'm eventually going to fix up. It was $25, so I said I'm going to do that. And then you come over here, you see I've got my bandsaw here, my Craftsman bandsaw. I bought that from a Mexican guy who spoke no English, like at all, in I believe it was Central Falls or Pawtucket. Dude was an incredible carpenter. He had like all this handmade stuff all over his house. I spoke enough Spanish that we could talk and like enjoy each other's company. He was a cool dude, but I bought that from him for $75 off of Craigslist. I used to do a lot on Craigslist. Come over here, I've got my Harbor Freight 12-inch sliding compound miter saw that, when I have to go somewhere, I take that. Like when I have to go to a job, I take that. It's right on top of a 10-inch Harbor Freight table saw. Both of these I got for Christmas. The table saw was from my father-in-law. Well, it was when my mother-in-law was still alive. So my father and mother-in-law, my in-laws, they bought me that a while ago now, probably 10, 12 years. And my wife bought me the miter saw when I said, you know what, I'm going to get into this and do this full time. And these have gone, I actually put a router table on that too, with a 1-horse Craftsman router, 1/4 inch. I have that mainly to do like roundovers and stuff, because I have a bigger router table that you're going to see for doing all of the patterns and things like that. Again, 10-inch Harbor Freight table saw. This thing is a beast. I've used it forever. I've never had any problems with it. These things here, where you got the inches and the measurements on the table saw, I've never trusted those. I have a 12-inch steel rule, or even the rule on my combination square. That's usually what I use. I will use that to set that. I don't trust those on anything, so I don't use those. But it's got a Diablo blade in it. It's a good little machine. I've done quite a bit with it. The 12-inch miter saw, I have cut, miles and miles of framing with it. I've cut trim with it. When I was doing the trim work earlier, this is what I was using. It's another incredible machine. I'm really impressed by how well made these two specific Harbor Freight tools are. So this will get pulled out into the open area for all of the cuts and all of the, when we're in the cut phase. And then when we go on to the assembly phase, it goes back here where it's in front of the drill press. And the drill press, I actually got that off the Craigslist too. Oh, this is a funny story. I was working Medic 3 in Peabody. And I'm online and I'm looking and I find this drill press, this one right here. It's actually a really nice drill press. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I really want to buy that. I think it was like $100. I said, I really want to buy that. But when I was doing it, I had a rule. When I was putting all the shop together, I had a rule that I would only buy these items if I did overtime. And no sooner do I say, I got to pick up an overtime shift, the phone rings and it was the scheduling person, and she's like, hey, can you stay on tomorrow? The next day, because I was in the night tour, the 24. We'd worked 3 tours in a row that made up one 24-hour shift, day, eve, and over. you know, over was like 3 to 11, and I'm sorry, Eve was like 3 to 11. Over was like 11 to 7 a.m. and obviously your day shift is 7 to 3, and we would work those. But she was calling me to work a shift the next day. She was like, "Hey, so and so, I think it was Steph, hurt her foot or her knee or something. She went through a lot with that, and she's not going to be able to come in. We haven't been able to fill the day shift. Do you mind staying?" So I just went, "Yeah, Daddy's getting a drill press," and she had no idea what that meant. But my partner's laughing his ass off. He's like, "You're nuts." I'm like, I know. But so that's where that drill press came from. We move along from the drill press. We have that engineer's toolbox. That there has all my router bits. It has all my drill bits. It has miscellaneous odds and ends. Maybe I'll do a tour of that sometime. But this is going on. So that's the engineer's toolbox. Just a simple Craftsman joiner planer. I bought that. Actually, I bought that as a bundle with this scroll saw here. And it was cheap too. And I mean, it works great. Oh, and the guy actually threw in that belt sander there that needs a little bit of work. It's got a bad bearing in it, but other than that, it works. I'll change it at some point. I bought it years ago, basically just he's like, "Yeah, take this too." I'm like, all right. But just a simple jointer. I've had to put a new belt in that, but it hums along. It does what it needs to do. This here is the big boy router table. It doesn't have the router in it because I was using the router to do cutouts when I was doing board and batten. I almost said basin board. Board and batten siding when I was working for the Amish. And it's still in my truck. But it'll live in there in that little plate in the middle. And that will allow me to do all of the pattern bit working that I need to for the various furniture that I do. This is my third one of these. Craftsman radial arm saw. It's a 10-inch. I got the nice Diablo blade in there. This, you can do everything with this. All I use it for is cross-cutting and dados and that kind of stuff, because it's a little bit more beefy than the Harbor Freight table saw. So this guy here, if you've been around woodworking at all, and especially if you've like lived in a rural place, you know people who are absolute geniuses with this thing. I got this one from my pastor when he retired and moved back to Amish country, and he couldn't take all this with him because, I mean, this thing is heavy. He gave me this, and he gave me a Craftsman 3-horse 10-inch table saw, which promptly caught on fire. And that's why I still use that one there as my shop saw. So he said, "Here, take this, take the other thing, take the table saw." This is a beast. I made all of the furniture in the living room with this. And when I do the timber frame bed, when I do the there was another one that I have lined up too. When I do... No, not that. Anyway, this is going to get used fairly significantly, and it already has. It's a very nice machine. It's actually the third one that I've had. When I first got together with my wife, her ex-husband just left all his stuff there, and I won't get into that because I'm not going to get into that story. But he left all his stuff there. He had he had one of these, and he had just this ridiculously underpowered, huge cast iron monster of a table saw. And I brought both of those. She's like, I just want them out of here. He's not coming back. Take them. So I took them. I never got a chance to really set it up and use it in Warwick. So I put it out on the curb with a free sign, and I helped a plumber who wanted it for cutting PVC load it in his truck. And then at some point, my uncle, who's more tea on my beard. My uncle, who is he's mostly a painter, but he does woodworking and like house painting. But he does some woodworking and some cabinet making and stuff like that. He had one that for some odd reason was painted blue. And he gave me that one, but I never had a table, so I never really got to do anything with it. And I know I could have made one, but this one, like I said, my pastor gave me that. And actually, the guy who originally owned this, if I can find the blades, where did I put the blades? Oh, they're all over there in a stack. The guy who originally owned this was Carl Rimler, who he is, I think he's an uncle of one of my brothers from church, and somehow my ex-pastor, my old pastor who retired, got this from him with a bunch of blades, and they all say Rimler on them. Carl Rimler just passed away. They had a funeral for him and everything, but it'll sound weird, but I like that his tools are still getting used. Like that's like when my father died. I liked that. I never met Carl, but I just think it's cool that the tools are still being used. But when my father died, it meant a lot to me that all of his equipment was still being used, albeit by my brother, and that's a whole nother story that I won't get into. But I was really happy with the fact that this is still getting used. This is still doing what he bought it for. So I'm glad that I still get to use Carl Rimler's radial arm saw. And that's kind of like the bulk of what we have in here as far as equipment. I have a DeWalt table saw. That's actually a 90-degree sled for the other one. I have a DeWalt table saw. That's primarily what I take on jobs. Just because since I put the router table on that one, it's kind of a pain. But underneath here, it's some biscuit joiners that are going to be used when I do the... Ooh, I bumped into something. When I do the 6-panel chest. And so that's basically the power equipment of the shop. We'll come over here and I'll talk a little bit more, just because why not? I mean, you guys haven't heard from me in forever. So that's the bulk of the power equipment. The heart of any power equipment shop is obviously the table saw and the miter saw. Cool part about this shop is that I also do a lot of hand tool woodworking. So that is a shave horse. You hold it, it comes out, obviously. I've got it pushed up against the diesel heater here. The home heating oil thing, it's the same thing. But this will come out into the work area. You hold a workpiece in here, push this with your feet. See how you can move it? That'll hold the workpiece and you work on it with draw knives. Or I find this this little hatchet that apparently had some surface rust. Does very well on it. Obviously, no woodworking shop is without clamps. Hand tool or power tool. So I got a bunch of clamps. I've got a Diston dovetail saw that's probably from the 1940s. I've got a Craftsman dovetail saw that my wife bought me for, I think, our first Father's Day. I've got, also she bought me this,
just a back saw. It's really good for tenons, things like that.
Got a few more of those that I got to work on restoring.
I've got these two here, a rip cut and a cross cut, both Distons, both early 1900s, late 1800s. Great saws. You can tell they're old when they have this little nib here.
That was basically put on there just to show that the metal worker could, like, look at how good we are. It was like pride in what you're doing, and people use it for all sorts of foolish things, like starting a cut and they break those off. People get dumb with them, but obviously, my father-in-law and I guess he'd be my grandfather-in-law, took care of and loved these things. I sharpened them up, and they're real nice. Coming over here, we have, this is mainly chisels. These cool old Craftsman measuring tapes that I found when I was cleaning out his place. Like I said, chisels. All the stuff for pocket hole screws. I do have a pocket hole jig. I do use it. I don't care what you think about that. Stuff to just really small files for getting in there and doing the handsaw teeth. This is one of the many steel rules that I have all over the place. This is just like a little wood slick. I know it looks silly, but it gets a lot of work done. Gauges. What else I got in here? I got a scale ruler that I never figured out how to use. Protractor, another gauge, another protractor. Card scrapers live in here. I've got a few more out in. I've got a toolbox that'll come in with me. That it's basically pretty much an everything box, but it's mostly interior finish stuff, and that'll come in here when I'm working and doing stuff in here. It lives in my truck, but it's got a whole bunch of stuff in it, and I'll go over that at some point too. Bunch of like bench dogs and that kind of stuff, just little stoppers, things like that. This little guy, I am excited for this little guy for doing those dovetails on those projects. I figured, you know what? I'll get a gauge and I'll do it correctly, and I won't try to freehand it. I'll try to make it as nice as I can, and learn from doing it with a template, and then maybe you can do it on your own without it. And I bought that little dovetail gauge. They actually ended up sending me some sort of free gift that was like waterproof bags or something that I use occasionally. So, continuing with the hand tool vein of this, and then we'll get into the other stuff here. It's going on a half hour. If you're watching it, you're enjoying it, so I'm just going to keep babbling. So, for hand tools, I remember when I first got together with my wife, her father, my father-in-law, who he's still alive. He didn't pass away. He just had to go into assisted living, so we had to clean out his house. My father-in-law had these beautiful, beautiful hand planes. And he showed them to me because they were his father-in-law's tools. And there's a few more, but these are the ones that I've cleaned up. And these are, realistically, this is all you need as far as hand planes and like a nice little block plane that I keep in that little box. It's out in my truck. But he had these cool Stanley planes that I always thought, oh God, those are so cool. Those are so cool. Stanley Bailey planes. A jack plane, number 5. 2 jack planes. I have another jack plane, a Buck Brothers jack plane out in my truck that I use for timber framing. Just because it's like a newer one and you can kind of, you don't have to worry about it too much. It's not that expensive.
These here, though, 2 number 5s, 2 jack planes. This one has that weird sole. I don't know what that's about. I tend to find that this one works better. And a Monster number 7 jointer. They're all Stanley. This one's not Stanley. I don't know what that is. It might be a no name. This is a Stanley Bailey. This is a Stanley Bailey. I tend to think they came in a set. But those were my father-in-law's and my grandfather-in-law. And again, every time I use them, it's like, oh, this is cool. These guys' tools are still getting used. I'm hoping, when I go, people will still use my tools and still do stuff with them. Although I made the joke to my wife this morning, because we live the way we do with the, self-sufficiency and all the gardening and the animals and everything. And I said, God, Hayden's going to end up living in an apartment with no animals. Because he gets annoyed, but he does like the animals. I'm realizing as I'm standing here, babbling to you, that all of my bits and braces, like bit and brace, the drill that you turn by hand, those are still out in the barn, and I'm going to bring those in here. But as you can see, I got a nice mix of hand tool and power tool, and they're kind of redundant with each other. I have some really cool old crosscut saws that I restored and that I've been using out doing timber operations, which sounds really cool, but it's just me out there cutting up blowdown. And I call it timber operations because I read in a book that's what they call it. So it's timber operating. I'll use those. I do use a chainsaw, but I use those. I got a bunch of cool axes that I've cleaned up and restored. And maybe I can do a video on that too. But this is basically what I have down here, what I use, what I'm gonna be using, and how I got to set it up. I have been wanting, and I still have to clean up a lot down here. But the fact that it's all lit up and I've put stuff where I want it, that's a big deal for me. I know that sounds silly. If it does, you probably haven't lived with mental illness. But I'm happy with it. I did forget to show you guys. I've got this big monster of a planer here, surface thickness planer. That mostly just stays there until I'm going to be doing like a lot of planing, and I'll take it outside because it throws a lot of sawdust and I can just sweep it up and put it in the chicken coop. But that's a big boy that I got. There's a story behind that too. Guy let me borrow it, and then he screwed me out of $500, so I said, okay, you don't get your planer back. He owed me $500, refused to pay me. I said, all right, this is mine now. And never heard from him again. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I got down here. I'll do another quick video after this. And yeah, that's about it. So I hope wherever you are, you're comfortable and that God is with you. Thank you.